What's up, everybody? And welcome back into our last video from North Carolina. We are flying home tonight. So we'll be back in action, more normal schedule, hopefully, starting later this week. A lot of fun stuff coming up. Check out our YouTube community page. You have to be a subscriber to check it out and comment on some of the upcoming events just for January. Got some fun things to announce, some fun giveaways. We hit 300K before the end of the year, which is awesome. We're going to do some celebrating. So a lot of fun things to come. I think this is our first video of 2024 in the new year. But what we're going to talk about today is something you all asked about on the last live, which is Deborah Salisbury's response and her affidavit to Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital saying that she knew juror number one or his wife was involved in proceedings with them, and how it was a blatant misrepresentation by juror number one to say he does not know Deborah Salisbury. Clearly he does, or his wife does. And that is just one of the many errors in this case. Why we need a new trial, because juror number one was hiding information, not answering correctly on his questionnaire. Well, Deborah Salisbury has some things to say about that. And she is a lawyer, barred in Florida for, I think, 30 plus years. So she probably knows her stuff. And we're going to listen to the tone and language of what she says in this affidavit. And we're going to get some answers from people not necessarily that would have to testify in this situation. But it seems as if she volunteered or wanted to set the record straight based on some allegations that were made against her professional responsibility and ethics. And I think that's very interesting. And attorney-client privilege information is going to be discussed. Not privileged information, but certain things are privileged that we can't get into. And we're going to see some of that in the affidavit. So hit the like button if you guys haven't already. Make sure you subscribe and hit that reminder bell, because the schedule's not always the same. So to make sure you don't miss out on any videos, that bell at least helps a little bit. I know the notifications aren't perfect, but let's bring up this affidavit now. And just in case anybody has forgotten, an affidavit is a sworn statement in writing. So this is under oath, and coming from somebody barred in Florida, I will just tell you, Judge Carroll will take this as the truth. He'll scrutinize it, of course, if there's information that shows this isn't true or some contradicting information. But when a lawyer swears under oath and writes up an affidavit and signs their name at the bottom, judges usually, unless they have reason not to, will believe that this is in fact true. And some of the questions as we read this that I want to ask are, did Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital make a mistake? Did they make a misrepresentation? Was it purposeful? Was it hard to find the right answer? Because some of the stuff they said, oh, it might be sealed, or the documents that we have, things like that. Those are some questions to keep in mind, and some questions you all had for me that we're going to get answers to as we read through this affidavit. Comes now Deborah Salisbury, upon her personal knowledge, oath, and affirmation, deposes and says the follows, or as follows. I have been duly licensed to practice law in the state of Florida since April of 1993. Again, over 30 years. Affiant, meaning her, has continuously remained a member of the Florida bar in good standing for more than 30 years, despite practicing in a difficult and confrontational area of law. I stand on my reputation as an officer of the court as to these circumstances, and I agree with her. It's one of the most difficult areas of law. I've been board certified in juvenile dependency law since 2018. As the court may recall, I represented Jack Kowalski and at times the decedent Beata Kowalski in the underlying shelter and dependency action brought by the Department of Children and Families in 2016 and 2017. I have been deposed in the present case. No doubt she's involved in this case. We knew that from the jump. That's not going to be a surprise to anybody. And she's affirming that here. On Friday, December 15th, 2023, I was present in the gallery in courtroom 2B of the South Sarasota County Courthouse when this matter was before this honorable court for oral arguments on issues involving claims of misconduct by the then so-called juror number one and his wife, Yolanda. At that date and time and place, defense attorney Ethan Shapiro represented to this court that the undersigned attorney had represented juror number one's wife in her prior divorce case. So she spells it out clearly. The defense attorney representing Johns Hopkins stated in open court on the record that Deborah Salisbury represented juror number one's wife in a past divorce. Again, which in our minds, when we looked at it, not knowing any better, definitely creates some kind of connection that we feel like we might have to dig into. As an officer of this court, I bring this misrepresentation of the record to the court's attention. So misrepresentation can have a lot of different sub definitions, right? A lie, a mistake, an accident, negligence, purposeful. Why are people misrepresenting things? There are different causes of action in Florida for a negligent misrepresentation, a fraudulent misrepresentation, a material. Was it material or not material misrepresentation? I would argue material, because if they're saying he lied on his questionnaire and that he didn't know or have contact with Deborah Salisbury, but then they said she represented his wife, who's also obviously involved in all of this, online discussion, commenting, posting, stuff like that, sitting in the courtroom. I think this is material to the case. I think the defense would argue it's material as well, because they're asking for that to be a major reason why they allow a juror interview, or maybe even interviewing more than just juror number one. I herein state, to the fullest extent of my knowledge of juror number one and or his wife, prior to being in this court's courtroom and learning what I take to be an attack by the defense on my professional integrity. So she's saying I sat in this courtroom, and the way that the defense was making this argument about my connection to this case and juror number one and his wife not disclosing it, or at least juror number one not disclosing it, she takes that as an attack on her professional integrity, personally and as an attorney, based upon the allegations as to juror number one. Defense counsel erroneously and intentionally implied that I was involved in some wrongdoing via some prior knowledge or involvement, which never happened. So if you think about it from her perspective, why she's annoyed is if she represented juror number one's wife in the past, then represented the Kowalskis here, then helped make sure juror number one got on the jury to make sure that her clients, the Kowalskis, won, she could be in this web that the defense is trying to weave of agents or apparent agents or lawyers or people creating a runaway jury that is the reason they lost this case, and not only lost it, but lost it so big. So I understand why she's taking personal offense to it. During 2007, I was a court-appointed counsel to represent another individual in a family court case. Given the confidentiality rules regarding the disclosure of information, I am prohibited from identifying my client. So she's basically telling the court, Judge, you got to trust me. I was court-appointed. I represented somebody else. I can't tell you their name because attorney-client privilege, but it was not juror number one's wife. Per the above, Yolanda Phelps, which is juror number one's wife, attended a brief hearing, and although I may have seen her, she was represented by other counsel, and I in no way represented her. I feel confident, based on the tone of this affidavit, that Deborah Salisbury has gone, done her research, checked her docs, checked her history, and made sure that these are true statements, unlike some other lawyers that are making some statements in this case. In this context, Ms. Phelps, as a petitioner, was more or less in opposition to my role. So if anything, Yolanda Phelps was in opposition to Deborah Salisbury, which would probably make her not like Deborah Salisbury. Most people in divorce proceedings don't like the other person. It may not have even been a divorce proceeding. Who the heck knows at this point? But Deborah Salisbury is saying, I did not represent juror number one. We had no attorney-client relationship. There's nothing nefarious going on in the background here with regards to juror number one, his wife, or this case. To represent in any fashion that I was counsel to Ms. Phelps or her current husband, Paul Lengel, now unfortunately for him, reduced to being juror number one, is a misrepresentation. So what she's saying, seemingly, is what juror number one put on his questionnaire was in fact true. And what the defense is arguing is now false. Why is this a big deal? It's a big deal because it shows the defense is grasping at straws. I think it makes it less likely that the judge rules in the defense's favor unless he has cold, hard proof of the allegations that they're making. I think wild goose chases are going to be cut off. I think fishing expeditions are going to be cut off. I think he's realizing he made the right decision to not allow discovery, because most of what they were going to find probably is misrepresentations and that this is not actually how it went. And the defense is literally throwing everything up against the wall at this point. And maybe they have nothing, because if they had something, they'd probably produce it. But they're just making these allegations as if they're fact, leaving no gray area or room for them to just be completely wrong, which would, in fact, not necessitate a jury interview, a new trial, or any wins on their part. I respectfully request that this court, to represent in any fashion that I was counsel to Ms. Phelps or her husband Paul was a misrepresentation. Whether I was is an attorney of record for Ms. Phelps' divorce case is an objective fact. So she's saying this is an objective fact. And not only is it an objective fact, it's easily confirmed from the divorce case docket. So she's saying with a simple search of that docket that the defense attorneys have access to, they could have found that the fact they were misrepresenting was in fact untrue. So whether they did it on purpose or on accident, it was grossly negligent and very easily findable. And now you're also seeing why we have limitations on how much time after trial can pass before you dig into the past of these jurors trying to find things. Because this was all readily apparent. They should have known all this. So to bring it all up now and be wrong about it is a pretty bad look. So she's saying that objective fact that I did not in fact represent her, which they said I did, is confirmed from the divorce case docket, demonstrating that I was never counsel to anyone involved in the present case, least of all juror number 1 or his present wife. So lay the Deborah Salisbury arguments to bed. There's no way that she or any questions regarding her should be a reason for a juror interview or a new trial. I respectfully request that this court acknowledge in any orders issued out of this circumstance that I, Deborah Salisbury, have completed my duties as an officer of the court by notifying the court of this intentional misrepresentation by defense counsel. So there she goes. Some of the questions we had, she's giving us her answer. She said, this is so easily findable. They did all this research. I'm supposed to believe they didn't see that I was an attorney of record. I don't buy that. They still said it in open court on the record. I'm calling it an intentional misrepresentation, which is also known as a lie. And fraudulent misrepresentation is a lie that you do in order to commit fraud to trick somebody into doing something you want them to do. So is this a fraudulent misrepresentation? I don't know. I think it's interesting that she calls it intentional, that they told the court something that they knew or should have known, very easily should have known, was not true in order to get the court to rule in their favor on a certain motion. It's pretty scary stuff for the legal system. And if I'm Judge Carroll, I would hate this. And I would be very calculated and careful in believing anything that the defense is arguing at this point. Again, without documents in black and white to prove what they're saying is true. If any effort to review the divorce case docket had been undertaken, let alone contacting me, that's another thing they could have done. As I would hope counsel would do, if nothing more than as a common courtesy. We're all lawyers. Who cares if she wanted the Kowalskis to win? If they would have called her, are they saying she would have lied to them on the phone? Defense counsel could have easily confirmed that the undersigned attorney was never counsel to, nor the attorney record, or in any way the legal representative of juror number 1's wife, previously known as Yolanda Phelps, in a divorce case. Any review of the record or even the trial docket will show that neither party was represented by counsel. This fact could not be any clearer. I think I know what she's saying. Her role was there. Sorry, I just lost my mic there. So I think I know what her role might have been in this family law issue, but I don't want to guess just in case I'm wrong. And there's no real reason to. It's not relevant here. But point is, she didn't represent juror number 1's wife, or and it seemed like juror number 1's wife might not have even had a lawyer at all. So that was a misrepresentation. The undersigned counsel has never represented juror number 1's wife or juror number 1 in any capacity whatsoever at any time. Lay it to bed, black and white, clear as day. Based on my best memory, the undersigned counsel has never even met juror number 1. Further, I have never met juror number 1, Paul Engel's wife, Yolanda, other than as indicated herein. So she may have seen her in court one time at some hearing. She didn't represent her. She doesn't know her. She didn't talk to her. She didn't meet her. She definitely doesn't know juror number 1. So regardless of what happened with juror number 1's wife, right, she could have represented juror number 1's wife in this prior divorce proceeding. But she's saying, I still don't know juror number 1. Never met him. So what he put in his questionnaire is actually true. And that is an intentional misrepresentation by Johns Hopkins, according to Deborah Salisbury. So what do you think? Was this an intentional misrepresentation? Was it accidental? Was it purposeful? Was it fraudulent? Because this is not a good look. This is not something you want when you need some some benefit of the doubt from the court and you're asking for some leeway from the court and stuff like this starts coming out, it makes your life a lot more difficult. So again, as mentioned before, I don't see the court extending or expanding this juror interview much. He may throw some additional questions in there, maybe about that juror note or that note that was written by juror number 1's wife. But generally speaking, I think he's going to ask the very pointed, specific, kind of broad-based questions to make sure that nothing in the court's instructions were violated at all through the trial and that juror number 1, in fact, did his duty. That's what I expect the juror interview to look like. I expect him to give the right answers. I don't expect a new trial to be granted based on this. So I appreciate everybody who sent me this and asked me to break this down. It was incredibly interesting. You guys are the best at finding this content. You will continue to drive the content we talk about on this channel. Where you have questions, I will try to break it down and give you the answers to the best of my ability. So thank you for joining me again in 2024. We're kicking off the new year right. Make sure you hit that like button if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys on the flip side.
Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast with new seasons dropping every quarter. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, the Lawyer You Know.